Joining me now from National Harbor, Maryland, at the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC, founder of Young Americans Against Socialism, Morgan Zegers. Morgan, it's clear that the Democrats are trying to weaponize Corona, and it really is a shame that they're doing something like this, when this could be, it's probably never going to be a full-blown health crisis in this country, but it certainly has the potential. It'd be nice to see a bipartisan attempt to inform the American people about what's going on and not institute a panic, which is what the Democrat Party is trying to do. And I don't see any panic behind you at CPAC. I don't see any I don't see anybody
Absolutely
wearing any
not.
kind of masks or running around say the sky is falling, believing Chuck Schumer and the rest of them, Nancy Pelosi. No. In fact, they're going about their business like the president is going about his business. And oh, by the way, the president, I think, even though he may not be officially on the docket, I do believe he's speaking, is it not tomorrow?
Yes, the president speaks tomorrow, and I'll tell you what, I am really busy working against the scourge of socialism here at CPAC Live. I just got off the main stage, and I am busy talking about socialism, but I will say I'm distracted a little bit. I'm disgusted that the Democrats are weaponizing the issue of coronavirus, and I feel like they've been chomping at the bit to find any way to say that the economy is going to tank under President Trump and find a way to blame him. So I'm surprised, I'm disgusted, but at the same time, I'm not surprised at all. That's Democratic Party of 2020.
Donald Trump is getting this right. And it would be nice just once for the Democrat leadership to say, hey, you know what? Let's work together. The White House is trying to work on behalf of the American people, but it's simply not happening. Look what he's done. He's cut off any kind of immigration from China. That's a smart move. It's not racist. It's a smart move. This is the epicenter of the outbreak of the virus right now. It's only temporary till this thing, get a handle on this thing. And look at the attempt to secure the border. How intelligent and how forth-seeing that move is. These are all things designed to make Americans safer in this country. But as we look toward November, you're there at a convention whose theme is, I think, America versus socialism. Your mission is to expose socialism. There maybe has never been such a stark contrast in a presidential election than what we're facing in November of 2020. And it literally boils down to liberty versus tyranny. That's what we're staring at.
Absolutely, and I used to hate hearing politicians always say that they were advocating for common sense and they'd be the common sense candidate. But I'll tell you what, I want common sense more and more from candidates these days because it's now common sense versus socialism. It is socialism versus everything that we stand for as a country. And I'm excited to be at CPAC because I really do support President Trump. I was a little hesitant in the beginning in 2015, like many Republicans, but really the left has forced me into the loving arms of President Trump and, of course, the Republican Party because they have gone so far off the rails. They are not in step with the American people, and it's really showing. I mean, to the fact that they can even weaponize the coronavirus and make it an economic issue and blame President Trump just shows exactly the place that we're in. This should be an issue that we can come together on. And, of course, I woke up in my hotel room and I said, wow, I am not surprised they did this.
Well, let's drill down on the socialism right now because it's staring at us in our face right now. If there is a face of socialism, I call it Marxist socialism, it is Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders is out there hawking all kinds of, quote, free stuff, but we know it's not free. I firmly believe you know. I certainly know it's not free. Two of the things that he's pushing out there I want to look at and drill down a little bit with. Universal child care / pre-K. He wants to fund this with a wealth tax, which, by the way, is unconstitutional. If you know anything about the Constitution and what the framers set up, they said effectively you cannot target a certain sector of society. You have to tax uniformly. The other is, of course, college for all and canceling out student debt. He wants a, quote, modest tax on Wall Street. We all know there's nothing modest about taxation. But when you step back and you look at this, even though you're relatively young, I don't want to embarrass you by asking you your age, but you're young, but I think you get this. If you look at these two items alone from a Marxist socialist perspective, if you can control the youth, if you can control schooling, which we know that the Marxist socialists and the radical left have done a great job in this country over the last few decades doing, if you can control cradle to grave, then you control the future of a country.
You're right, and I'm glad you brought up the student loan crisis, because when I launched Young Americans Against Socialism in August 2019, I did it to create educational videos about the dangers of socialism, the history of socialism, and of course, to expose the tactics that socialist movements have always used throughout history, and how they really are mimicked by the American leftists of today, specifically Bernie Sanders. One thing socialist movements always have to do is create a divide between the wealthy and the poor, create the desire for forced wealth redistribution. And I think the far left and Bernie Sanders, the DSA, the radical Justice Democrats, and AOC, they are using the student loan crisis to train my generation into supporting such a radical idea of they have what you don't have. That is not moral for them to have that kind of money. It is not fair for them to have more money than you. Give me power, and I will use government force to take what they have and give it to you because it's right and it's fair. Earlier this year, AOC went on to a conference and she said that it's immoral to be a billionaire and the only way to act morally is to give away your money. I cannot believe that they're using the same language as socialist leaders who have turned into socialist dictators every single time that we've seen throughout history. It's disgusting that Bernie Sanders is the Democratic nominee or is likely to be so, but I think that we are going to wholly reject socialism in the polls in 2020 on Election Day in November. The only thing that I say is I'm not really worried about 2020. I'm worried about the long-term implications of having such mainstream socialism. My generation is being trained to support these radical ideas, and this is going to be a long-term situation. I'm not necessarily worried about one election.
Very wisely put there, and you hit the nail on the head. Bernie Sanders is doing effectively what Stalin did, what Hitler did, what Mao did. It's class warfare. They're scapegoating. They have to create a bad guy in order to oppose their radical ideology on a society, and that's exactly what Bernie Sanders is trying to do. It is intoxicating, though, I would imagine. There's a lot of kids running around CPAC right now with a lot of student loans. Now, I would lecture them that they never should have gotten in that situation in the first place, but it is intoxicating for your generation, for some political magician with this socialist snake oil to come around and sprinkle it around and say, hey, I'm going to wipe out your student loan debt. But if you are educated in the United States Constitution, and if you're educated in tyranny versus liberty, you will say no. You will reject what Satan is offering.
Absolutely. And you touched on a really good point there. We were failed in the classroom. American students were failed in the classroom in a very specific way. Yes, we were taught about Fidel Castro. We were taught about Lenin, Stalin, Mao, all the terrible dictators of our history. But we were not told that these men started as socialists and Marxists who promised a more free, more fair, more moral society if only we implemented socialism.
Yep.
And so they promised these really great free things. They promised a more utopian society. And we weren't taught that they turned into socialist dictators and dictators who killed their people and starved their people. That connection wasn't made in the classroom, and so now when we experience modern-day politicians making those same utopian promises, we don't have the ability for red flags to go up in our head because we don't have the brain power to do so. And so I'm not saying my generation is dumb and that they're putting the future of the country at risk. Instead, I want to equip them with the truth with our educational videos, and you can see the videos at fightsocialism.org. But we make the videos to bring them to our side and show them that they're being lied to by the radical leftists, and they deserve the truth.
They do. All Americans deserve the truth. It's unfortunate, though, that millions and millions of Americans are falling for the snake oil that Bernie Sanders is spreading out there right now. Hopefully, come November, he will be summarily rejected, and maybe the Democrat Party will come to its senses. I don't know. In the meantime, let's face it, we have a radical Marxist socialist in the lead for the nomination of the modern Democrat Party. Morgan, good work, and thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.